Warlord's Ruin is the newest dungeon in Destiny 2, and here's how you beat it. Before we get into the encounters, let's talk about the two main buff mechanics, Imminent Wish and Naeem's Wish Empowerment. Imminent Wish is a buff that you'll receive at various points during the various encounters. While in possession of Imminent Wish, you can stand next to taken totems to cleanse them, which is always necessary to progress each of the fights. The other main buff mechanic is Naeem's Wish Empowerment, which is the buff required to be able to deal damage to all of the bosses in this dungeon. We'll talk more about how to get that buff in each encounter specifically as we walk through this guide and hit all of the specific encounters. As far as specific encounter mechanics go, let's talk about the first encounter where you'll be tasked with defeating Ratheel, the first broken knight of Fikrul. The encounter begins with some random Scorn enemies spawning. After a short duration of fighting Ratheel, you'll be teleported into some cages that will slowly raise up towards the sky, killing you if they go up too far. To escape the cage, you'll have to shoot and kill 3 blighted eyes surrounding your cage, opening the door and allowing you to escape. After escaping, you'll notice that you have the Imminent Wish buff that we discussed before. While in possession of this buff, you must hop down into the arena to find the taken totems deployed by Ratheel to stand next to cleanse. Once your Imminent Wish buff timer is gone, all totems will disappear, rewarding you with the Naeem's Wish Empowerment damage buff so long as you cleansed at least 1 totem, with additional cleansed totems providing the damage buff for a longer duration. Once Naeem's Wish Empowerment expires, you'll move on to the next phase where you'll simply rinse and repeat until you kill him. A few other tips for this encounter is that you receive the Wish Imminent buff immediately upon being teleported into the cages, meaning that escaping the cages more quickly allows you more time with the Wish Imminent buff to cleanse all of the totems on the field to get the maximum possible DPS phase duration. As far as damage itself goes, I found personally that Galahorn, Legendary Rockets, and Witherhoard were exceptional for burning him down in 2 quick phases, while the Lament Sword yielded quite promising results as well. After defeating Ratheel, the final boss of the dungeon will appear to teleport you into the jail cells. To escape these jail cells, you'll do the following. You have 3 different rooms that players can be in. If you're solo, the doors will open so that you can access all 3 of the rooms. One player will be in this room, another player will be in this room right here. If you're in this room, if you're solo, you can hop up here and get through these doors right here. The third player will be in this room. There are 6 total wheels that you can shoot, and each player can see 2 of them. The player in this room will have tally marks right here. This tally mark number is the indicator of how many of the wheels need to be spinning counterclockwise. This player can see this wheel and this wheel. So boom, there's our 2 counterclockwise wheels. Another player will be in this room and have another number. That is how many of them need to be spinning clockwise. So this player can see this wheel right here. So we'll have to shoot it again, and then shoot it again to make it go clockwise. This player can also see this wheel right here. So shoot it again, boom, make it go clockwise. And then your third player, that is going to be in the final room, can also see 2 of the wheels. So we'll run over here. This player can see this wheel clockwise. And then the final wheel right here. Sorry, forgot for a second. Boom, clockwise. So now we have 4 going clockwise because of the number in that cell, the white tally marks, and then 2 going counterclockwise because of the number in that cell, the red tally marks. Once you have that ready, someone shoots the lever, and if your combination is correct, the door is open. And before we progress with the rest of the guide, I want to briefly ask that you consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you have found this guide helpful so far. After escaping the cells and making your way through the various traversal areas and castle maze, you'll eventually arrive to the second encounter to fight the Locust of Wailing Grief. In this encounter, you must light all 4 of the large pyres in the center of the arena to enter the damage phase and take him out. To do so, you'll begin the encounter by killing the 2 servile minotaurs at the back center of the arena, thus spawning 6 blighted eyes near the boss in the center of the arena. Killing all 6 of these blighted eyes will spawn a large Scorn boss enemy on the far left and right sides of the arena. who, similar to the first boss, can spawn taken totems. These bosses will also drop an additional taken totem at their location on death. Shortly after these enemies spawn, two things will happen. The first is that you will gain the Imminent Wish buff for 30 seconds, which will of course allow you to stand next to the taken totems spawned and dropped by the large scorn bosses to cleanse them. The second is that the boss will call forth a Freezing Tempest, which over time will inflict onto you a stacking debuff called Biting Cold, freezing and killing you at 10 stacks. To avoid dying to this mechanic, you'll find that there are scorn posts at the back of the castle walls ignited with fire that will grant you the Shelter from the Storm buff when standing next to them, which will quickly drop all of your Biting Cold stacks and preventing you from receiving any additional ones while standing next to them. The key here is to go back and forth between the taken totems to cleanse them with Imminent Wish and the Scorn Fire post to drop off your Biting Cold stacks to avoid death. Once your Wish Imminent buff expires, the Howling Winds will die down and all totems will be consumed, rewarding you with a Burning Desire Solar Charge in the middle of the arena for every totem that you cleansed. These Burning Desire Solar Charges can be picked up and carried to ignite the 4 pyres in the middle, beginning the DPS phase of the fight once all 4 are activated. In the event that you do not cleanse 4 totems in a single phase and do not get 4 charges, however, the Blighted Eyes will respawn, so you can repeat the process of killing them to spawn the Scorn bosses, and killing the Scorn bosses to create more taken totems to cleanse for additional charges. For the DPS phase, each lit pyre will have a large ring around it that will grant you Naeem's Wish Empowerment for 15 seconds to deal damage, providing a total of 60 seconds worth of a damage phase between all 4 pyres. As you deal damage, however, the ogre will walk towards the pyre to slam it and extinguish its fire. This is important to note because as the DPS phase carries on, the Howling Winds will be active and will be inflicting you with the Biting Cold debuff anytime you are not near a lit pyre. So running as a team to the next pyre once the boss extinguishes your current one is not only important for acquiring the next 15 seconds of your DPS buff, but also to maintain the Shelter from the Storm buff to avoid dying to Biting Cold. As far as tips go here, this boss is pretty tanky, so consistent and ammo efficient DPS options like Witherhorde and Rockets with scavenger mods are pretty great here. My team had a Galahorn along with 2 legendary rockets, along with a Witherhorde and 2 snipers, resulting in a pretty fast 2-phase kill. After killing the Locust and making your way through a whole lot of additional traversal areas, you'll eventually arrive atop a large tower to fight Heffin's Vengeance, the final boss of the dungeon. One of the new mechanics for the final boss is the Taken Puddles, where the boss will spawn taken orbs near the ground, which will pollute the surrounding area with a taken damage over time zone. Be sure to always be killing these taken orbs above the polluted areas throughout the fight to avoid taking damage while running around. As far as progressing the encounter and damaging the boss itself goes, this encounter is effectively a mix of mechanics from the previous 2 encounters. Shortly after the fight begins, the boss will spawn a bunch of surrounding Blighted Eyes. Just like in the previous boss fight, killing all of these eyes will grant you the Wish Imminent buff and spawn 2 large Scorn bosses who will spawn taken totems and drop taken totems on death. The one new mechanic to this fight is the Immune Corrupted Hex Drinker Wraith enemies and the Hex of Vengeful Corruption debuff. These enemies and this debuff will both spawn onto you alongside the large Scorn taken totem enemies. And the way this debuff works is pretty simple, as meleeing a Corrupted Hex Drinker will transfer the buff from you to him. However, this process does go both ways, so if he hits you back, it'll transfer back over to you. Whoever is holding the buff at the end of the 15 seconds dies. Now, similar to the first encounter of the dungeon, standing next to those aforementioned taken totems to cleanse them will reward you with Naeem's Wish Empowerment once the Wish Imminent timer expires, with more cleansed totems rewarding the Wish Empowerment damage buff for a longer duration. From there, you'll simply DPS the boss and then chase it to the next section of the arena to repeat the process. After a total of 3 segments, you'll end up in a section containing 3 platforms with the boss in the middle. This is where you'll do the bulk of your damage, as the boss is damageable for basically this entire phase. The only trick is that the boss will continuously spawn blighted eyes to its side to damage you and corrupt your current platform with taken energy after a bit of time, forcing you to move on to the next platform. Once you finish up on the third and final platform, you'll hop back down to the bottom of the arena to repeat the whole process again until you eventually damage the boss to its final stand, at which point it will teleport you to the top of a tower to duke it out until you kill it or it kills you. As far as damage goes, Witherhorde and rockets felt fantastic here, similar to the second encounter. Now, if you found this guide helpful and want to see guides on how to solo flawless this dungeon on each particular class, make sure to subscribe to the channel to catch those when I upload them. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.